Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel for yet another Gig Talk episode. These, again, are really fun to make for me because I get to kind of on my way to or from a show. Right now I'm sitting in the parking lot at my show. I got to get in and start playing at about 7:30 tonight. I get to kind of brainstorm and think about things that I want to talk about, subject matters, and just kind of do a really raw and pretty unedited version of this solo mini podcast, I guess we can call it. And in today's video, I don't really know what I'm going to call it yet. I think it's going to be something along the lines of 5 things where you don't want to be that guy when you're performing live. And I mean, we could obviously add a ton of things to this list. I could make it a top 10, but I'm going to narrow it down to 5 things that I see that you definitely have control over. And from experience, again, watching people perform live, seeing other live musicians, as well as just experiencing things for myself, and kind of learning the ropes from other good musicians, there's just certain things that you don't want to do, or you don't want to be that guy, I guess, in these 5 scenarios. And after brainstorming in the car, my very first one that I want to talk about is going to be having control over your volume. You don't want to be extremely loud. And I know that's very self-explanatory, but I think a lot of musicians and a lot of people that are getting into performing live, maybe you just played your first show, or you got a show coming up, your first one, or you've played a handful but you're still pretty new to it. The one thing that I hear from managers, bar owners, people that are booking me, for example, to play somewhere, or even just people out in the crowd listening, they always talk about how, in my instance, or I guess just with other musicians that they've seen, where it's like volume is too loud. And usually if I email a place and I'm like, hey, I'm interested to play, or they email me, that's one big thing that they highlight right away. They're like, I don't want to have anything extremely loud. I want my guests to be able to still talk when you're playing at the venue. You can see that these managers and these bar owners and whoever's booking you have dealt with this stuff before with other musicians. So again, I understand from a musician's standpoint that you want to be heard, but you have to understand, as you get better and better at your craft and understanding and just experience, that people aren't always there to listen to you. They're usually there, if you're playing at a restaurant or something, like they're usually there to have a good time, eat, talk, and listen to you a little bit. Typically that's kind of the way it goes. So you don't want to be overly loud. How can we fix that? Well, a couple things. Over time, you'll get a good gauge and judgment of your own volume. You'll just naturally do that. Again, my first 10 shows, even first 15 shows, I was kind of hesitant. I didn't really know exactly how the volume should be. If you have a family member or a friend that pulled up to come see you play, have them do a little sound check for you, right? So you can play some chords, you can say check 1, 2, 3, and have them standing, maybe in the back, and give you a thumbs up if things sound good, right? You could also, if you need to, you could also ask maybe a staff member, maybe that's last resort, but eventually you kind of just get a good gauge, especially if you play at a venue, say every other week or once a month or a couple times a month. It's like you kind of have a good gauge of where your volume should be every time. So that's gonna be the first thing. You don't want to be that person that just is blaring with their volume. The second thing that I want to talk about is going to be, and I might make a whole another video on this subject, but what's an appropriate way and how should you dress for a show? And every circumstance is different. If you're in a cover band, for maybe a country cover band, you might be, as a band, dressing up a certain way. If you're in a rock band or a tribute band for the 70s, you might be, dressing in more like 70s attire. Maybe that's what the band decides on. But if you're in like a casual solo acoustic, setting like what I do, that's how I perform live, or maybe like a duo or a trio where it's pretty casual and you don't really know what to do. Again, I'm wearing what I'm wearing to the show right now. Again, white t-shirt, not always. Usually it's just like a solid color t-shirt or whatever. Necklace, jeans, boots, or nicer shoes. Just something where you still look like you're presentable. And what I mean by that is I have seen firsthand a lot of musicians, and again, people might disagree with me on this, but they go and they pull up and perform in shorts, or literally shorts and tennis shoes, or they're just wearing like this big graphic t-shirt, and you just kind of know when you see it, where it's almost like this person maybe they don't care too much, they don't take it super seriously. You just kind of have to have a certain level. And for me, I feel like I'm kind of like the baseline. right? I'm not extremely dressy by no means, but I feel like at least what I'm doing is kind of what's like casual but presentable. So you don't want to be that person that shows up, in my opinion, in, you know, shorts, khaki shorts, basketball shorts, whatever. I've seen that, you know, just, you know, Nike tennis shoes. You just don't want to do that. Again, you kind of want to have a certain level and keep an eye out and kind of see roughly what that is. And again, you'll kind of learn over time. Third thing, and it's just something that I don't typically agree with too much, and I see it and I hear about it happening quite a bit, is during your set breaks, going around with a tip jar and go literally like almost like talking to people, but going like table to table with your tip jar. I just don't think that comes off as professional. I think it kind of comes off a little bit as maybe even needy. For me, I just always have my tip jar, my virtual scan QR code sign up in front of me when I'm playing. You know, I'll mention it, you know, once, maybe twice a set, and that's it. You know, if people are going to tip you, they're going to come up and tip you. You don't want to force it. It just kind of comes off as needy and not too professional. So you definitely don't want to be that person that does that. I've seen it a couple times, and I just highly recommend not doing that. The fourth thing that you don't want to do, and you don't want to be that person, again, I guess we'll kind of name the video that, or base it around that, I should say, is when you're performing live and you again have free choosing or selection of songs that you can choose that evening. Again, you don't want to play all these songs just for yourself. Again, there's sometimes where you'll see a live performer where they're playing, you know, just classic hit after classic hit, and the crowd loves it, and they're singing along, they're clapping, they're dancing, and they're getting into it. That's what you want. Again, your circumstances may be different. Again, if you're just performing just randomly solo acoustic hits or songs, you know, you want to have a good judgment of what to play. If you're playing songs that people don't know, they're not really going to get into it. You know, they're not really going to remember you. You know, they might not come back to see you. They might not tip you. There's all these different things. So you definitely want to have a good idea of, I'm not always playing for myself, or I'm sorry, I'm not here to play for myself. I'm here to play for the people that are here to enjoy the music. That's got to be the mindset. That's got to be almost number one on your list, if not number one. And I've mentioned that in other Gig Talk episodes, so it's just something I really stand by. You know, circumstances may change or vary. If you're in a band and you got a strict set list of songs, maybe you're in a Leonard Skinner tribute band, you're just going to play Leonard Skinner. I understand, but you know, circumstances differ between person to person, or I guess how you're performing live. And the last thing that I want to talk about, number 5, where you don't want to be that person, is showing up unprepared with gear or without backups or an emergency kit. I'm going to put all that into one summary, because if you show up and you're not prepared in terms of you didn't pack up things right, you forgot things at home, you're just not prepared. You don't, you know, you got to take things really seriously. You know, these things add up over time. You don't want to be without your tuner. You don't want to be without, you know, a backup pair of strings, or you forgot your picks, or I don't know, whatever it is. You also don't want to not have like an emergency backpack or backups of things. So for me, I guess I kind of have an emergency bag, but really I just bring backups of nearly everything. So in case of emergency, I have backups ready to go. But if you're not going to want to bring, you know, backups like a backup guitar or whatnot, because it's too much to bring, have a bag that has backup cables, more picks, more batteries, more strings, and extra guitar strap, just like an emergency bag. Don't be that person that shows up and doesn't have any of them, and then all of a sudden you got to go on in 10 minutes and you forgot your strap, or your strap broke. You know, it just doesn't look good. So those are 5 things that I kind of just thought of off the top of my head where you don't want to be that person in these circumstances as a live performer. If you can make sure that you don't do these 5 things, I mean, you're already in really good standings, and you're only going to keep getting better, more comfortable, more confident, and more gigs. That's the whole idea. So again, if you guys like videos like this and you'd like to see more from the channel every single week, multiple pieces of content typically, just make sure to subscribe. Supports us a ton directly here at Growth in Music, and I will see you guys next time.